Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome back to another plugin knowledge session. This one here, we're going to look at the UAD SSL G-Bus compressor. I have the legacy version here. UAD have updated it to a newer version, but I'm just running with the legacy version because it gives me all I need at the moment and doesn't use as much DSP as the new version. The new version is supposed to emulate the hardware a lot better, but this one is pretty good and I'm a bit used to this one now. So there are other versions out there if you don't have a UAD system. Waves has a very popular one, and I'm sure there's a few others out there. It's quite a common sort of plugin, and everybody wants to emulate this one. So this is a compressor that was on the famous SSL 4000s consoles of the day, where everybody was using them in the major studios on all of the major records, etc., that have been coming out. So this is generally used as a last compressor on your mix bus or on some other buses that are joining lots of instrumentation together. It's quite commonly used to sort of do that last little bit of compression and to glue all of those instruments together to make this song sound a little bit more cohesive, a lot fuller, and glued together, I guess, to use it simply. So there's not a great deal of controls on there. It's quite simple. Generally, we don't compress very hard into this. We keep it very low. Now, you can obviously use this compressor on other tracks and various other things. There's no rules to what you can and can't do with this. But in general, most people use it on their mix bus as their last gluing compressor. So I have a song here, and I'm just going to turn this off for the moment. And we're just going to just give you a quick example of what the song is. So that's the song that we're going to play with, and I'm going to do it on the entire song just to sort of emulate it as if this was on the mix bus. So we have some basic settings here. We have our threshold. This operates just like any other sort of compressor. Nothing different about it. All the controls are very similar. We have a threshold here that's from minus 15 dB to plus 15 dB. We have a makeup gain control. So this one doesn't do automatic makeup gain. So you'll want to adjust this to suit so that any compression or volume decrease that is happening, that you are making it back up. The attack is limited to 6 settings. So it's not a variable control. This is actually locked. So we have 0.1, 0.3, 1, 3, 10, and 30 milliseconds. The release has 4 actual values, and it has an auto setting. So how the auto setting works is not clearly defined by UAD. They don't really give you any real insight into that, other than they state that it characterizes and emulates the original SSL G-Bus compressor, and that the release is automatically determined based on whatever the program material is. So based on the audio that is being passed through it, it will adjust the release as it goes. We then have a ratio, and it is locked to 3 settings, 2, 4, or 10. So that's 2 to 1, 4 to 1, 10 to 1. 10 to 1 would be obviously for a limiter. 4 to 1 would be going a little bit more heavy on with the compressor, but not quite a limiter. And 2 to 1 is probably the setting you're most likely going to be using, especially on your mix bus. We generally want to be fairly subtle on our mix bus. We do not want to overcompress, unless, of course, that's what you want to go for, which you can do if you so choose. We have an in-out button, which just basically enables or disables the plugin. Then we have this auto fade section here. So if we want to fade out the song at the end, we can do that with this control here. So the length of the fade is determined by this rate control here. And when we want to fade it out, we can activate the button and it will fade out. So let's have a bit of a play with it here. Like I said, most of the time we're going fairly subtle. Generally, I would keep the needle well below 4 and even to the point of just barely moving at some stages just to glue the song together. So let's bring it in and play with it. So the most common settings that I would use here, as I stated, is I would go 2 to 1. I would go for a slow attack. And the reason I go for a slow attack is because I do not want to compress the transients of the song. I want this to be subtle. Now, if I'm doing a fast attack, I'm going to start pulling down on the snares and the kicks and all of those transient material. And you're going to hear it pumping as we're going, but I don't want to do that. You can set the release to auto if you wish, or I like to generally set my release to quite fast. Again, this is going to allow it to seem subtle because it's going to release the compressor fairly quickly and get out of the way. So I'm going to play with the threshold now and target our needle to where I would like it to be. So that's pretty much where I'd like it. So I'm just going to flick between the two with it on and off a few times just so you can get a feel for what this compressor can bring to your song just by having it on, just doing that little bit of compression and that little bit of glue. And obviously I just activated the auto fade just to give you an idea of what that fade setting does. There's a really nice fade there. So I don't generally use it very often because I like to actually draw in my fades if I'm going to do it, but that is a really nice one. Let's actually do it a bit shorter and just do that again just so you can get a real effect for it. So that's probably a bit quick. We can go a bit slower than that. And it stops flashing when it's obviously hit the bottom, and we could stop there. So we could do that if we were printing it real time. But like I said, or you could automate this function in, but I don't generally use that. I generally draw them in, but it is there if you would like to use it. So it's a fairly simple plugin, but hopefully you could hear it when I was flicking in and out, what the quality it does add. Now, this is not adding as much as what it probably would originally because you've got to keep in mind that this song already has the SSLG bus compressor on it when it was mixed down. So in theory, I'm actually adding a second version of this on top, but you can hear that it's still making a big difference. So I'm hearing quite a bit of difference between the plugin being on and being off, and it adds a lot of character to it, a lot of thickness and fullness to it, and it just brings the song together nicely and starts to get you closer to that professional sound. So check it out. If you've got the UAD system, then demo this one, give it a shot, see how you like it. If you don't have a UAD system, then check out one of the other products from, say, Waves or somebody else, and have a bit of a play with it and see if you like it and if it's something that you would include on your mixes going forward. So hopefully this has been helpful, and I will see you in the next video.